Welcome to the Wild Pitch Podcast.
All right, boys, we're back yet again with another big-time guest. This pandemic has allowed us to get to a lot of really great people that we didn't think we had any access to. There's the one positive to come out of it. But today we have Anthony Iapoce. He is the Major League hitting coach of the Chicago Cubs. And a guy, for me, I mean, I've heard of him my whole entire adult baseball life through college. There's been a lot of connections through New York Tech guys and Lamar University, with Scott Hatton being, I guess, the biggest guy that would always mention.
Howdy, boy.
Oh, yeah. He would always bring up the name.
Hat Rack.
Yeah. We had Hat Rack on here a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
So, I mean, just the guy that we've always heard of. I don't know how we haven't crossed paths yet, but you have crossed paths with Brian here.
Right.
And, you know, thanks for coming on. We really look forward to just talking some hitting and big league stuff, and really appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, man. When Brian shot me a text, I thought it was awesome, man. Then I went right to – well, I saw the one you guys did with Louie, and I love Louie. So, and then, you know, knowing Brian and then watching you guys go about your thing, it's all about baseball. So it's pretty cool. You know who else we got that came down that year was John Weglars.
Oh, yeah.
That's right, yep.
So Weglars and Hat Rack came down, and I didn't know them, and we were on the same plane. And, you know, them being a senior and junior, me being I wasn't even 18 yet. And they guided me through that, you know, being away from home, like in Beaumont and stuff. So it was they were pretty cool. They were pretty cool. So that connection was the Coach Hall was the head coach at Rice, and then he was the assistant head coach at Lamar. And he would go do the camp every year with Hirsch.
Right.
So that was that connection. So when New York Tech cut down their program, he sent Weglars and Hat Rack down to Lamar.
Now, were you being recruited by Tech at all at that time?
Yeah. I was being recruited by, like, you know, all the Big East schools, all the northern schools as far south as Richmond. I'd say was like the biggest. But like my goal was like to get as far away as possible. So I had one school, Cochise Junior College in Arizona. I remember getting a letter and talking to their coach. I'm like, yeah. I said I have a city championship game at Yankee Stadium, and then hopefully a couple like the Daily News at Shea Stadium then, or the other one at the Newsday. All these games, all-star games, where hopefully somebody would see me from far away. And because I held my ground. Like today the pressure that they put on kids is outrageous, as you guys know. But even then, they're like, hey, you need to sign. And I was like, I'm not going to sign. Like, what if I sign and somebody's at this game and I have a good game from University of Texas or Florida? So I just kind of played those cards and just said, I'll play my game. If somebody's there, if not, I'll just go to this junior college. And the head coach from Lamar was at that game in a city championship at Yankee Stadium.
Wow.
So we won 1991 city champs. Can't take it away.
Who'd you beat?
We beat Zavarian.
Nice.
So,
now, Nicky Melito was
we had like
coach
six
at that time,
Division
right?
One guys. We had like 6 Division One guys on that team. 2 guys played Pro Bowl, Pascalicio and Anthony Sylvester. We had a stud squad in the city. So then I get a phone call, and then I didn't even know where Lamar or Beaumont was. Everybody's like, oh, it's tumbleweeds down there, and it's this. And I'm like, oh, great, right? Because there'll be no distractions. You just go play ball. So that was pretty cool. Yeah. And then that takes you here where you guys, like, you just don't know the decisions you make and where that journey's going to take you, man. It's crazy.
It's a wild ride.
Before we get into it, but that time when you were in high school and you had that game at Yankee Stadium, I was 2 years behind you guys, and that was like the last couple of years where the talent level was insane.
Yeah, it was insane.
And like nowadays it's completely different. I don't know if you know, but you play like, Christ the King we would play them when we coached St. Dominic, and they could barely field the team. And those teams were loaded with like major league guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you had a forum to go out and play and be showcased like that in that game. And you knew everybody in that game was legit. So.
Yeah. I don't know how, like in Long Island, because you'd always read about it in the paper, right? Because we didn't play against Long Island teams in the city. You just played at 5 boroughs.
Yeah.
So you just read about everybody until you played summer ball. I played with the Yankees. And then you just play summer ball against the guys from Long Island, be friends with them and meet them and start those relationships. But, yeah, you were like, you'd always read about each other, right? Because there was no internet. So you read a little thing in the paper, and then you go play against this guy. And you're like, okay, I got to show my stuff because this guy's big time, right? Like a a Steve Karsay, a first rounder, or somebody like that. And
Right.
scouts there, I get a couple of hits. Like, you never know. So just try to take advantage of those opportunities.
So you played against John Riley too, right? From that
Yeah.
Castle King team.
Yeah. Yeah, they were good. They were good. It was like a change in because they were the top team. And then we had one like JV, and we had like a bomb squad of young players. And then my senior year, we only had 3 seniors. We won. Then they went back. They lost. And then McClancy went back again and won. So it was like this changing of the guard, almost like the Last Dance stuff, like in the city here. And then I don't know who knocked out McClancy for those years after that. But it was kind of like changing.
So what happened? You have an 11-year career, which is amazing. You know, you great hitter. What was your first job, and how to get back into it, and you know that whole process?
It was coaching. So in 2005, I played independent ball with the Gary Railcats, awesome stadium in the Northern League. We won that league. It was one of the funnest years I ever had. Being around like young players, like some A-ball guys, because you're the older guy on the team, and a mix of like a couple college guys, and you're almost like a coach. So you start doing that, and I was doing lessons out in the Midwest. I was living in Northwest Indiana, outside Chicago, for like 8 years doing lessons. And when I played with the Marlins in 2002 and 3, I had knee surgery, and they didn't re-sign me. And the farm director, Jim Fleming, who is unbelievable, said, whenever you want to coach, when you're done playing, give us a call. So I was going to sign and play in Rimini in Italy. Mm-hmm. And then the Marlins, the Marlins called and said, you're going to play in Italy or you want to coach? And I said, all right, I'll coach. So I got right into it. I played in 05 and then didn't go to Italy and started coaching in 06 part-time for $12,000 for the Marlins in Jamestown. And then just kind of started that momentum each year, kind of getting a new job, moving up as a hitting coach.
That's another fun town, Jamestown.
Jamestown, yeah.
The Jammers,
yeah.
Were they still the Jammers then when you were there?
Yeah, we were the Jammers. That'll make you put up numbers.
Yeah,
you know,
well, everything's got to be better than Gary, Indiana, though. No.
Yeah, you know what? The stadium. I remember walking. The stadium's incredible, but the outside, and nothing ever happened there because they had so much security. If anything would ever happen, they'd probably shut down the stadium. But I mean, the organization, the manager there is like, I think the winningest manager in independent baseball. He's like the Joe Madden of independent baseball. It's just incredible. And he's put out, let's see, my hitting coach there is that hitting coach for the Brewers, and the hitting coach after that, and Gary, is the farm director for the Tigers, Kenny Graham, Andy Haynes. So he puts out coaches and gets players signed, and he just establishes winning. So Gary was pretty cool.
Yeah, actually, I don't know if we spoke about it, but I actually played in Joliet that year. I got released in August.
Yeah.
But I remember because I knew your name and playing against you. But
the Jackhammers.
Yeah, Gary, Indiana was one of the road trips I went on.
Yeah.
Stadium is beautiful, but they say a murder capital of the world, right?
Yeah, it's tough, man. It's a rundown. There's a steel community. Once the steel factory started shutting down, I guess in the 60s and 70s, the community kind of went down a little bit. So, you go right off the highway right in, and you don't really stop at any red lights.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they'll pull you over.
So, Brian, that was one of the nights you actually got some rest then, because you didn't get to go out?
Yeah, Brian
I didn't do much going out, in either place.
That was a fun league, though. I went everywhere.
Yeah,
Canada, St. Paul, playing in St. Paul, like that was nuts. So it was fun.
Yeah, even Joliet, that was a great place to play.
Yeah, that was good. It was a good league. It was a good league.
Yeah.
So the one thing I know, we had Frankie Menachino came down to our New York Tech practice.
Yeah.
And, when we're talking to guys like yourself, where like your job is you're the hitting coach, that's all you think about all day long. You got your computer system and your approach and your philosophies. I just love how you guys, whatever it is that's your thing, it's fairly simple and it's consistent. And you have a team approach, and you try to just give the guys a easier thought process. What's your thing as the hitting coach? Like what do you preach daily that you think, helps you do your job?
I don't know if it's so much like something that you preach or you continuously believe in daily. I think like qualities that I always looked for in a coach as a player you know, as us as players, you know, when we sit in the locker room and talk and complain about certain coaches or reasons why we like certain coaches. As soon as I got into coaching, I just wrote down every list of coaches that, you know, I thought were really good, which was like a really small percentage in 11 years, you know,
Right.
and then coaches that were okay, and then coaches like I learned what not to do. Like I really just listed those out and started kind of formulating how I wanted to do. But I would think, like, I did a thing the other day to some amateur coaches, and I was like, number one, I think you got to have like empathy every day for this game. It's such a crusher, man. It's just a negative sport, especially in the hitting department.
Yeah.
To be able to make out after out, to go up to the plate like in front of thousands of people and TV, and now it's social media, and you really put yourself out there. It's not as easy as everybody thinks. So to just try to have empathy for the players each day, things that they may be going through, not on the field, but off the field. And then that just leads to like just staying positive, man. Like, and it's not like fake PD positive, which we all know, you know, being New Yorkers, you know, we're pretty blunt. And, you know, I think throwing humor and sarcasm and staying positive really helps certain players, you know, to show that you're real, and they know that it's hard to do even at the big league levels. Guys are vulnerable, just like us as coaches, we're vulnerable. So I think those two things is just, you know, showing empathy and staying positive, and then everything just kind of builds off of that. I would say starting a trust relationship early on, and it's not attacking, it's just kind of laying back and waiting for certain guys to come to you when you're ready. And then that establishes like deep conversation, you know, honest conversations. So when you need to punch them in the gut, or they need to punch you in the gut, nobody gets offended because you know you're in it together. So you try to establish that as early as possible without like forcing it, you know, like how you guys do, and then just kind of organically happen. And then, but I think just staying positive without being fake is it's a challenge, you know, in that game where guys we're trying to win a World Series. Guys are trying to establish themselves. We have guys that are with the Cubs now that are going to be free agents in a couple of years. They want to be productive and make as much money as they can as well. So trying to balance that as a coach at that level, that's the challenging part. It's the part that I like doing. So just, I would say, just super positive, but super positive, being real, you know?
Because one of the big things, and I'm sure we all can relate to this, their success aligns with you know, with what you want as well, because ultimately their success is what's going to impact, ideally, the team's overall success, right?
Yeah, and again, the players you have are going to dictate a lot of the stuff. Like, you know, my first year in Texas, we won 95 games. We won the most in the American League, and we had a veteran team. You know, I'm walking into a clubhouse, my first big league job, not knowing anybody, and I got to meet Capitan with Beltre and Prince Fielder and Josh Hamilton, Mitch Moreland, Ian Desmond, Elvis Andrews. You know, Rugi was a young kid. Got Chirinos behind the plate. Then we get a guy like Beltran in the trade. So you're establishing that, and you're teaching, or you're learning stuff from these guys, right? And then 2 years later, we go totally young, right? Because we lose some free agents, and then we make some trades to try and establish and build up. You're teaching the same way, you're saying the same things, but then there's a different outcome, right? Because you have younger players who are going to have some bumps. You got veteran guys who are going to make their own decisions. I think that's like issues that, you know, we talked about before we came on. Everybody can talk about all the great players that they work with, whether it's high school, college, or pro. So whenever I go and talk to parents, because for some reason they're scared to death about their kid playing baseball and not getting into college, so it's amazing to me. I started off with like 10 names. Right, because they want to hear about, you know, Rizzo and Beltre and Bryant and Stanton and Javi Baez, right? And they want to hear about all these players, and you realize 10 names. I say, hey, anybody ever heard of those players? And I was like, no. I said, those are the players I coached that got released in A-ball. So, like, you know what I mean? So if your kid is good enough and he loves it, he's gonna get seen. He's gonna get fun. Somebody's gonna find him. So, you know, knowing your players and how to talk to them, where they're from, and all those things factor into trying to bring a group together. I think, like, what I love most is trying to bring guys together as a unit.
I think I know I deal with it at a Division II college. You know, I'm kind of the de facto hitting coach with Frank, and you know, we both talk about it, how it's hard to even approach a kid that has had mild success at the D2 level, they look at you like, what are you trying to tell me? And I could imagine, and that's one of the reasons I didn't even get in coaching. I give you a lot of credit. Not having played like a day in the big leagues, I thought would hurt me. And if you got to have a strong personality to overcome that, and you got to really believe in yourself, because I remember hearing the guys in the minor leagues saying about our coaches, what is that guy going to say? I'm like, guys, that's a really crappy way to look at it. And like, what's interesting, what you said before, people ask me all the time, oh, it must have been great, the coaching. And I look at my coaches, I can count on five fingers. The guys that I thought were like legit. Like I could go to that guy and be like, this guy knows more than the guys on the team. And it was right, because there's a lot of guys that just, they stink. They don't, they have no clue. But I think
it's showing like you tend to navigate, gravitate toward guys you think who care about you and your success, and not about them themselves as coaches trying to move up. Because even it's really today, especially, guys are trying to move up as fast as they can in the minor leagues as coaches, when, bro, you don't want to step in that big leagues and you're in a couple of years experience. Like, you don't want to make all your mistakes in the show. You may never get another chance. It's like, very fortunate to have this opportunity. There's only 30 hitting jobs on the planet in the big leagues at the highest level. So, going through the minor leagues, being coordinator in 2 organizations, being part of 3 rebuilds, from the ground up, like, all of that gets poured into one conversation with Kyle Schwarber for 10 seconds. All these things that you've talked to, and all the ups and downs of what may work.
The experiences you've had.
Yeah, for some reason, experience is bad. I don't understand it. So even for myself, so when I talk to our players, and I use, when I started coaching the big leagues, I use, even when I was coordinating, I would, call it, when I was with Toronto, it was Robbie Alomar, whoever it was, like, even with us, we got Kevin Youkilis that works with us. When I was with the Rangers, it was Michael Young, Pudge Rodriguez. Like, I'm calling them into meetings and going, dude, can you talk to these guys? Like, can you tell them what you see and what we talk about? Because, like, I haven't dug in the box in the big leagues in front of 40,000 people at Wrigley Field in Game 7 of the World Series. Like, I need, we have Sandberg, Billy Williams, even guys like Rich Sutcliffe. I bring them in the cage. Like, come in, hang out, talk to these guys.
Those are tremendous resources that you can.
But I think coaches who maybe haven't played in the big leagues are afraid of that.
Yeah.
So they push it away. You want to bring, like, anything that I'm not able to do, I want to bring people in to make the organization of the team better. Like, so even our staff now, like, we got, obviously Rossi and what he's done, and Mike Knapp has been huge. Mike Coach Napoli in 17. I'm bringing him on our staff, and then Andy Green is a bench coach, and Will Venable third. These are all guys that dug in the box, like, put it out there on the line, whether they did good or bad. Some of the players can relate to them better than they can relate to me. So you try to integrate that, like, as a whole coaching staff, especially at first and third base coaches. Like, they're watching over 700 plate appearances from your starting position players, right? So whatever, multiply that by, you have 7 stars. They see things, and they may not be in the cage, but they look different, and then they'll come to me. So I always ask, like, my corner coaches and the BP throwers who throw to their groups, like, what do you got? What do you see?
Right.
And use that. And then it makes everybody feel good, like, when you're all working together, and then you're not killing yourself in the cage all day by yourself.
We do that all the time. Chris will throw BP. He goes, Jen, did you do this with that guy? And that's like, if he sees it, I'm all pumped up because he knows what he's looking at. I mean, he was a great hitter himself. But I tell you what, your staff, you have you guys are going to have fun if you ever get back to it. You have really good guys there.
Yeah, we had a blast of spring training, and
that's a good group.
Guys are ready to go. Guys are ready to go. So we Zoom once a week with the players. Sometimes I get on it, sometimes I don't, just because I just say hello. I like the players to do it themselves, and then we meet as a coaching staff. But there's only so. I think the biggest thing right now is people always ask me, like, what are you guys doing? And this and that. Like, dude, is everybody just chill out? Like, nobody's getting ahead. Like, everybody's in the same boat, getting in their backyard with wiffle balls and a tee. Like, major league players are in their garage. So everybody's trying to get ahead, but you can't really. And then you go down a rabbit hole you don't want to go to when everything was okay anyway to start.
So amongst my friends, I put myself out there, and I said I thought Kyle Schwarber was top 5 hitter in baseball. I thought he was going to win batting titles.
Mm-hmm.
What's going on with him? Why isn't he winning batting titles?
Well, 250, 38 last year and almost a hundo was pretty
Starting to
good.
come, right?
You know?
Yeah.
So
I think he's awesome.
The show is so hard, man. It's so hard.
Yeah.
And we tend to, like, again, gravitate toward the best. And look what this guy does. It's just, like, so small of a percentage of the players who are really, really good. And Schwarber, like, you know, the second half of the season, got better with the elevated fastball. Was really working down and low in the cage for like 4 months, just really putting after it. Started getting on top at like 95. And then just kind of, number one, like the sense of belonging as a player in the big leagues is probably the hardest thing for guys to deal with, you know, especially if you've done good, then you struggle and you're still trying to find your way. Like that all plays into your swing, that plays into your plan, it plays into, you guys know, it plays into your chase. So he's just getting to a place to where, okay, I knew I could do this, but now I know, like I could really be good, you know. And then it's just a progression of the players. Some guys get it earlier, some guys it takes years in the minor leagues. Like you just don't know when they're gonna be okay. I can do this.
That's the most fascinating thing about it that people don't grasp is that the psyche, how important that is, man. Just mentally, you know, being in a state of mind that you're comfortable with yourself and you're trusting all the work that you're putting in. And like you said, being in those situations where now you're kind of standing side by side some of these other greats and, you know, wanting to fit in and not coming out of all the things that you do well to try to impress anybody. Like the mindset that it takes to be able to sustain a professional career, it's not easy, man. That's probably one of the biggest challenges that these guys have to kind of work with.
Yeah, I have utmost respect for the everyday player, for every player in the big leagues. But the everyday guy, and I'm not saying because I'm biased toward our guys at Wrigley, but, you know, we Friday, Saturday, Sunday are 120 games, and then at least another one during the week on the travel day, like a Wednesday, to be able to deal with that and put up and not be able to get on the field because they got to take care of their bodies, their psyches is pretty strong. You know, they're not out taking millions and millions of swings all the time because you got to get at the field at 9 after a night game. So, but the respect for the everyday player, I mean, is just the position player is just incredible. Just to go out there and
but that's what
and then be successful is like, whoa.
But that's another level. That's it. But then Cat always say he would come home from the season and he'd be mentally exhausted.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah. And then you hear stuff like what's his name Miguel Cabrera talks about not trying to give away in that bat. 700 plate appearances. Think about the challenge that is.
Yeah, we talk about, like, you know, not giving away a pitch. Like the everyday guy is going to see almost 4,000 pitches if he gets 7. So it's you don't really give away the at bat, right? You give away pitches within the at bat. Like you chase one, then you scuffle. Maybe it's snowing, maybe it's raining, maybe it's freezing. You're like, I don't want to be out here. God, my hands are killing me. Boom, fastball, strike one.
Right.
Like all these types of things that play into, and then you're pulling off, and somebody's like, hey, your front hip's leaking and your backside's not working as well. Yeah, I know. I don't want to get blown up inside. Okay. How about that? Done? Are we done talking? Yes, we're done. Okay, sorry, man. So
I think the Miggy story, it was like September, and he said he was really mad. He's like, that was the first at bat I gave up all year.
That's incredible, man.
And I would
when you see a guy do something like that the whole year, like just be like, you know, first half, okay, he made the All-Star game, okay, something's gonna happen, and then make it to the end of the season and in the minor leagues or the big leagues, you're like, I can't believe that just happened.
Right.
Like, how did he do that?
Right.
And even though you're working with them every day, you're just so amazed. They walk out of a cage, you're like, wow, that's pretty impressive stuff. Pretty impressive. And it's just a thought.
It is. And, you know, obviously, you know, we're all failed minor leaguers here because, you know, we never got to the big leagues, right? But I tell kids all the time when I'm teaching them, it's like, you know, I know those ebbs and flows, man. Those times when you're feeling really good about yourself and you're kind of all locked in. And I know when mentally you just kind of hit rock bottom too, you know, and everything in between. And it's a constant battle, you know, and that's it. And that's why the message, like you're saying, you know, not taking anything off is so important, right, to kind of sustain it.
I would say the things that I'm learning over the last 5 years, and when I first got into coaching, I think the first person, my second year coach that I ever came across was Mike Stanton, you know, for the Gene Carlos Stanton. Like, he was the first guy that I'm working with in the cage at 18. I'm like, whoa, this is this guy thinking is so far ahead? Like, why is he here? Like, just put this guy in the big leagues right now. Just because of his thought process and how detailed he was in his practice. He was so far ahead of everybody. He was trying to – and then you start, okay, let me write this down. These are the qualities I see in him. And then you start meeting more and more people. Then you become a rover. You go through the organization. You've seen all the good players, and they all have the same type of qualities. So the things that I notice most is, like, guys, there's so much downtime in baseball. These guys, like, the best players are able to control their thoughts in a positive way during those downtimes in a competitive way. You know, I used to count, like, when a guy would swing and miss or foul ball off when he's struggling, how long he keeps his head down kicking dirt. Like, if it's, like, 4 seconds, 3 seconds, like, it's way too long. You know, and you're feeling good, you foul ball off, you kick dirt, boom, you're picking up that pitcher, like, right away. Like, okay, you got one. You go there again, I got you. You know, you're
right.
Like, but the same swing a month later, same foul ball, head down, scuffling, here we go again.
That's where you know he's not in the right place.
Don't swing at this pitch in the dirt. Boom, swinging the pitch in the dirt. You go back to the dugout. You're mad. You waste 4 more at-bats. 2 weeks later, you're at home. So, like, the best players, like, they control that downtime so good. Like, their thoughts in between pitches, on and off the field, in the dugout, they're still able to be loose but be focused. Because baseball, so everybody tries to compare training from other sports into baseball. Like, bro, this is, like, so long and so drainful. You have to have loose times. You have to have times where you don't hit. You have to have times when you laugh and you play jokes and you do these things in the locker room. Because if not, they're going to kill each other. It's too long of a season. It's too negative and it's too long of a season. You guys know. Like, they're going to kill each other, man. They got to do these things, man.
That's such a great point.
That's why, like, Joe Madden was, like, I was, like, being able to work with him and always admiring him from afar was, like, he's so far ahead of, like, the rest and not getting on the field. Now that teams could measure it now through StatCast, how long guys are running, they're running and then they give rest. Like, he was doing that without that because he's just watching the game. You know, he can tell when a guy's tired and you're not going out, show up at the field at 6 o'clock today for a 7 o'clock game. Just be out there. Just be on the line. This is the big leagues. So you learn all these things, like, and Joe was the one who started all those things on the plane that everybody made fun of. Now everybody's doing for culture and stuff like that, you know. So he was awesome. He was awesome.
I love what you said before, and I think this is, like, probably the top subject is you talked about Schwarber, how he's staying on top and he's working low in the cage. And one thing we did with our hitters in the college this year was I said to them, you need to reestablish what you think is a successful swing in the cage. I said, a line drive is not successful, or it just because it looked like it would have been a hit on a field when a guy's throwing front toss, that is not a success. All right. It's great that you hit it great, or that one was a double in the gap. That's actually probably pretty bad. But we had to explain to him, like you just said, I want low liners, get on top of everything. We do a lot of target hitting. Like, I want you to take that up and in pitch and figure out to get on top and inside through the middle. I want the low and away, same thing. Just to have a feel for your bat. And but to get them to buy into that, to know that when you're in a cage, that's your home run. They just want to keep seeing, oh, that would have been a double, that would have been this, and but that's how you have success. Because then in the game, it's just, guys, don't worry, that's where the ball's gonna fly out.
What did Yelich say on Twitter the other day about?
That's the best. That should be the most watched hitting video, most hits out there right now.
All the time. Phenomenal.
It was really good.
And what happens when you have a kid do that? When I say try to hit a ball off the plate, they hit an absolute 6-foot-high backspin bullet every time.
Yeah.
And then they go, okay, that was great, and they go back to their old swing.
Yeah, it's really tough for kids because of, you know, say when we were playing, that you had like a phone in your apartment, and if you were doing good, you didn't want to talk to nobody. And if you're doing bad, you didn't want to talk to nobody. Nobody could contact you. You know, and then you write a letter like, you know, I'll get back to you in a month. I'll be home. But now it's like, you know, I saw this roving. Every time I had to fly somewhere, if they asked me, hey, can you check in on this guy? It was always something non-baseball that made them not perform in the game, like pressure from their dad or their coaches or their mom or their brothers, and all that played into it. Like the kids today is like, why didn't you message me? Why didn't you email me? Why didn't you Instagram me? Why didn't you call me? I left a text message. I left all these messages. then they YouTube, then they Twitter, then they try to find everything. So you have so much information, they don't know where to go, and they're just going to follow whatever the trend is or whatever hot, whatever some player's doing or some teacher's doing or some coach that's putting Post-its in Twitter. I always say it's dangerous and it's very hectic out there. Young kids don't know where to go. I really don't blame them. Like, I didn't grow up with all this information.
Right. So much noise out there.
There's too much noise. So, like, our job is to, like, condense it and squeeze it. Even our guys, even guys in the big leagues, you know, you're going to not hit and you're going to go, YouTube drills. You know, because they're competitive, you know. So it's just how do you condense things and simplify things into words that we just, you know, doesn't mean it's easy, right? Doesn't just simplify, but for complicated is cool right now. It's been cool for the last 4 or 5 years. So.
How many words can I spit out in this, you know, like you said, 10-second conversation to make this kid think I'm smart almost, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times I'll start talking to players and it's like, whoa, Post, slow down. Just tell me what you want. Like, that's it, you know? Because, you know, you're looking at, we have a thing called Kinetrax, which is unbelievable with 4D stick figure. I hardly watch video anymore because the stick figure shows the exact moves. You guys would love this. It's just incredible. You can measure anything and it cuts your time in half. So sometimes you're watching stuff and you get caught up in the numbers and stuff, and then you're so excited to tell a player what things that you may see or things that he felt. He just wants to make sure. And then you and they're like, whoa, what? Are my hands here and here? Okay, they're here? Okay, let's go. You know, like, and then they're going to tell you how they want to be coached.
Well, the other thing is the redefinition of movements now, right? Now they've redefined what they are. They changed the jargon.
Yeah, so, yeah, it's the same movements, just different words, you know? So, but I think how we started this conversation with Schwarber, like, okay, so it's the highest velocity in the history of baseball and the most spin in the history of baseball at the same time. Like, there's no more 2-0 fastballs to big guys. Even if the score is like 10-0. We played the A's first spring training game. Rizzo got a 3-0 changeup. First at bat.
In spring training.
Spring training this year. We were like, whoa, okay, this is where we're at now. So I can't take too many more chances out in front. I really got to stay more in the middle of the field, not to hit the 3-0 to change up, but to lay off it, you know? So just because I want to get hits, you know, I don't want to – he hates striking out. So it's also the most fastballs thrown at the top of the zone in the history of baseball. Even guys like Kyle Hendricks, who throws 86 to 89, he's like – he was a sinker guy. He still has a sinker, but he's like, guys are going to swing up. I'm just throwing to the top of the zone. Like, he just keeps it simple. And then he has an ERA of 3-something every year, and he gets pop-up after pop-up, you know, swing and miss, then a grounder. So our guys are like the guys that I've been working with and learning from. They all start out, like Rizzo starts out up here with the T. Like KB Bryant's up here with the T.
And they're just trying to stay above it?
How does he hit that with that swing, though? How does he even get to that ball?
Who's that? Chris?
Bryant, yeah.
That's why he works on it. You
know?
You'd be surprised. Like, his swing is really short, tight, and connected. He just gets up a little bit sooner than the but he's 6'5", 6. You know what I mean? He's a monster, man. These guys are humongous. I think everybody gets lost in that. Don't understand how big these guys are.
Yeah.
But Kyle, Javi, and it's not because we're down their throat, hey, you need to hit the elevated fastball, because they watch the game. When they come in, you say, what do you want to work on? Like, bro, these guys are pounding me up in the zone for strikes. Like, I got to get on top of it or let it go till 2 strikes. And, if it means working down in the ground to get the ball up eventually, trying to work up. But, I see some players, like, not even using the tee anymore, or organizations throwing out the tee full go, which for me, the tee is like, you can hit by yourself. It's like in that Sean Green book. It's like tee meditation, right? You're feeling yourself. You're imagining things, which is all hitting is anyway, man. It's just visualizing and anticipating before it happens, and you can control it. So I want to work on things that I can control, and then I want to work on somebody throwing me, mixing up pitches at the same time. there's nothing realistic about baseball practice no matter what we do, So
yeah.
That's a great point. Even when you take in BP, I mean, guys aren't throwing 95 at you. They're just yeah. But the great thing you said about the Tito is the field thing, right? I mean, that's the other thing that's so huge. Like guys get into that mental space where they start to kind of feel what they want to accomplish. So
well, whether you are feeling great or not, if you think you're feeling great, that's what you want.
That's all that matters.
Doesn't matter.
Yep.
Yeah, I tell the guys, I'm your assistant. You know what I mean? I'm your assistant hitting coach because, it's the most selfish thing in team sports. You're up there by yourself. There's no plays. I mean, you call a hit and run a play or a bunt a play or move them over a play. But it's not like football where it's, however on or ever, and you're running a play and everybody has to work together, or an NBA where you got to do this, or hockey. You're up there by yourself. So you got to be able to control your thoughts before you control your swing. If you're worried about your swing so much, but you got fear and anxiety in the background, it doesn't matter how many swings you take. Like, we've all been there, right? Like,
it's over.
You're working, and you're swinging, and you get in the game, and you're chasing. Oh shoot, runner on third, I got to do that, and then your swing fails because your thoughts fail. So the best guys are not the best swingers; they're the best thinkers, and it can't be measured, so nobody believes it. But being with these guys every day, you try to talk to more people about it.
Well, that's just it, right? That's where the big disconnect is with the analytics and the feel for the game, because like you said, it's not measurable, right? You can't quantify it. What a guy's processing mentally and where, how he kind of view things and how he's able to manage his emotions in certain situations. They think the numbers are just black and white, but there's so much detail and nuances that go into those numbers in certain situations or circumstances per individual that they can't really measure, and they're not even factoring in, it seems like sometimes,
There's a lot of gray in baseball. There's a lot of gray. He'll throw this 60% of the time if this situation is with a man on second, or I'm using this size bat, or the sun is blaming off the seat. So any information just makes you informative.
It's another tool.
It doesn't necessarily make you knowledgeable.
Right.
So, you try to take that information, and information has been thrown out for 100 years, through stats, whether it's, batting average or whatever it is to what it is today. Everybody's using it. It's just when you become an extremist in either or, whether you don't use it or you use it, or you don't use video or you don't use video, or you use Kintrax or you use metrics, they're all just pieces. They're all just pieces, man.
It's amazing. You're talking about big league hitters and these guys that are successful, they're keeping it simple, and then we work with kids a lot, whether collegiate level, amateur level, youth, and there's so much information out there on dropping the barrel, all this stuff, trying to hit fly balls, launch angle. And it's just crazy. Like you're saying, the major league guys are trying to keep it simple. And those are the guys, if anyone can do it, those guys can do it because they know their body, right? They're grown men. They've been successful. What should we be telling these kids? What should they be doing to keep it simple? I mean,
well, I'll start that off with a story. And it has nothing to do with the players. So a friend of mine down the street in the neighborhood, he's a fireman, Barry Riley. And I assume every fireman knows each other, but I know that's not true. Hey, this baseball coach? He came and visited me with his son, his buddy, and their son at Wrigley last year for I would recommend it for you guys. Fly out. I'll take care of you. I'll give you the Goodfellas tour behind the scenes through the kitchen, everything. And he said, let me ask you something. He said, how do you talk to the veteran players? And I said, you know what, man? The veteran players ask the most questions. The younger players ask the least, especially the new kids coming up. If they really have to fail for them to come to you, because they have been given so much information. And through that, a lot of players that have come up with a lot of information and to fail, come back with way less the second time they come back. Because the show's no joke, man. They don't care. They don't care about your launch angle or your exit velocity or how much you bench press. You think DeGrom cares about how much you bench press? He's going to look at you and go, he's going to shove it down your throat.
Jim, tell them about your exit velocity thing.
Two things. As a recruiter, Chris and I, when we get an exit velocity, I tell people all the time, if it says 150 miles an hour, it's the same as if it says 50. I don't care. But thank God it wasn't around when I played. They wouldn't have let me get on the field.
Yeah, it's nuts. I mean, and then you got to go by like. I'll get back to the question. So the size of the guys is going to hit the ball the hardest. I mean, that's been since Little League, right?
Thank you.
And then you have guys who are really good hitters. Their average exit velocity total is lower because they put the ball in play more, right? They get, Anthony Rizzo is able to scoop one off the ground, almost off a bounce, dump it in for an 0-2 knock, RBI. There's 100 again for Anthony, so there's 100 ribbies again. But I think, like, one is for young guys, man, it's so tough. It's like getting them to be aware and to know themselves is probably the most challenging thing in hitting, especially how much money on the amateur side is being spent to facilities by parents, which gives the parents anxiety, which gives the kid anxiety, which will lead me to tell you is that, when these kids are playing, 90, 80 games at 8, 9 years old, like what we're finding out now in the minor leagues, we're losing guys left and right to the burnout. Like, they're done. They don't play no more. And we have guys like that in Major League Baseball. When you go around and talk to other players and other coaches, they're like, yeah, man, he's done, man. And these are really good players. They just can't wait till it's over because they're so burnt out because they missed half their life.
That is really interesting.
Yeah.
That is very
So the burnout doesn't happen at like 8, 10, 12. Right. It probably happens to some guys in high school. They start getting other interests, college. But minor leagues, it happens every day, man. They're just burnt. In the big leagues, they're burnt too, especially with all the scrutiny. So if they look back on their life and they're like, man, what did I do? Like, so, it's really trying to teach kids to I hate saying enjoy the game because even our players yell at me. They're like, really have fun? I'm 0 for 15.
Right.
You go have fun. So it's.
Well, the landscape has changed so much, and it's fascinating to hear you say how now we're starting to see the ill effects of it, right? Like you
said, you see it.
Right? Yeah, I mean, back when we were kids, 9 years old, playing 80 games, no, that's completely unheard of. You played 12 games in the spring, 12 in the summer, and it was a wrap. You went into you did other things, you played with your friends, and that was it.
Yeah. And their skill set may probably better today. Overall, they may throw harder and hit the ball further and run faster, but can they actually play the game? Like, we're looking for guys that could play the game. That's becoming – if we have a guy, say, in the draft, like when I was coordinating, and, when this really started hitting mainstream, like in 13, 14, 15, 16, like – it was like, hey, man, this guy can play. And we're like, all right, what? Wait, what? Like, it becomes the standout. He doesn't miss signs. He understands the situation. He's a good teammate. Like, all these things go into factoring developing players. So, on the amateur side, if I'm working with a buddy's kid, like, I just try to get hits, man. You want to play more, just get hits.
Right, because there's a lot of fun in that.
Yeah, stay line to line if you can for as long as you can, and then start developing your power. Like, you look at Yelich and his numbers in the minor leagues, it was always high average, walk to strikeouts, start figuring some things out. You start taking more chances out in front, start figuring out your swing a little bit. That's a grown man who's been in the big leagues for 7 years, though. Like, and somebody's supposed to put that on a 12-year-old?
Yep, and that's great that you're saying that. That's
hit the ball as hard as you can to dead center. If you want to hit the ball as far as you can to dead center, I can get that too. I could live with that. But just being line to line and learning how to get hits, because that's going to help you two-strike approach. It's going to do situational hitting. It's going to help your team win games. It's going to keep you in the lineup more. So, like, even when I like to say things like this now, like, if you want to know how to get hits in the big leagues, ask a guy who got hits in the big leagues. That's how you learn how to hit,
That's gold, boys. That's gold.
No, it's
like
it's
Riz,
amazing.
Riz always talks about his favorite hits are the cheap ones, where he hits one off the end, or he has a 2-strike jam job over the second baseman. They're like, yeah, they don't care how hard they hit it. They're like, you get to first base, you survived. Like, I got a hit, my average button went up, right? Because now the scoreboards, as soon as you make that out, man, you start running off, you see it, and it's already dropped your percentage before you get off the field. That's crushing. People don't understand that, man. That plays into your whole game.
What I love, Jim, when he said that, some of this other stuff that you got to wait till you're a man to be able to do.
Yeah.
some of the stuff they're trying to teach 12-year-olds to do. Like, he can't do that right now. Like,
yeah, you can teach a guy to, as a younger advanced guy to anticipate, right. So the whole thing with getting the ball in the air to pull side is learning how to pull the ball without pulling off, right? And anticipating out in front, still staying through to create backspin on the pitch, maybe that's middle, whatever, and just hitting it out in front. But anytime you're going to gangster hack and try and pull the ball left field, like they're just gonna change. They're gonna mix speeds on you to death, man. So especially at the lower levels, so it's starting to trickle down. But I don't know how to stop it. Like, we've had in the big leagues more strikeouts than hits
last 2 years. Yeah.
Yeah, they're allowing it to happen. And you're sitting there. What you're saying is 100%. It's gold. It's the right way to go about it, and they are still allowing some of these organizations this to happen.
I think like too, we were talking about the game we were talking about before. Like, it becomes like the walk, hitter, strikeout in baseball, and you're trying to figure out how to win games in the big leagues. Like, what brand are you going to use? Are you going to use, okay, everybody just try to hit homers because you can score runs that way, or do we need to get guys on base and then move the ball around the field? I think your lineup is going to dictate how you're going to attack. It's kind of like I always go to Pat Riley, the showcase Lakers, and then go into the Knicks, and it was just straight total opposite of we're going to beat you up the whole time. So depending on your personnel, what type of offense or what type of staff you're going to have.
Yeah, I've said it a bunch on this on the last few episodes that, in 2005 when I was having my best year, and I'm in Double-A, and I'm flirting with 300 most of the year, and that's when I could go, you know what? Let me make that adjustment. Give me some of those numbers to maybe drive a ball. But I have a feel through my fingertips at this point. I'm 25 years old, and we got these kids coming into us, and with you, I'm sure they're doing all this stuff right off the bat. And
yeah,
there's just no common sense to it. And it was also like with Cleveland, they had us doing they were paying us to walk the one year, and they're giving us literature. They're telling us, look how many pitches Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa saw in 1998. And I just stopped the whole meeting. I go, excuse me. I said to the pitching staff, pitchers, what are you throwing me the first pitch? Fastball right down the middle.
Yeah.
I go, why? You're going to hit a double.
Yeah.
That's it. I said, so you want me to take pitches?
Yeah.
I'm 5'8".
Right.
160
you
pounds.
walk. Yeah, you gain walks because you're a threat. And even guys like Altuve didn't walk, even when he was hitting 330, didn't walk a lot because he wasn't driving the ball yet. And then he figured out how to get in his lower half and juice some balls to pull side. Now he started walking a little bit more. But you're going to walk because you're a threat. You're going to see more balls out of the zone.
Yep.
Because you're a threat to score one run. So, if you're a smaller guy, you got to be able to hit. You got to get hits, man. You got to get hits.
The other side of that, Jim, that you're talking about is that these guys are going to throw you that first pitch fastball, and if you don't take a hack at it or put it in play, guess what? You're 0-1. And when you're 0-1, you leapfrog to strike two. That's just the math. It just, and then when you're in strike two, now you're really compromised, right? And like you said, if you're not hitting the ball out of the park, it's a tough spot to be in.
Well, Anthony's brought it up twice today about just how big these guys are. And Chris, you're a big guy, but the rest of us were severely undersized.
Yeah.
Hanging out with professional athletes like that?
Yeah. I mean, even the smaller guys are big. They're really strong, or they're really fast, or they got a fast barrel, or they can run pretty good, or they got a cannon. So they got things to make up for their size. But when you're looking at big guys swings all the time, strength can override the swing any day of the week. It doesn't have to be as perfect as somebody to a small size where they're trying to use the whole field. So I don't know, man. I think also when I first started coaching, I would have this huge list of things I thought players needed to do. And that was 06, and you're how you're going to do it. And then each year, to the point to where it's like right here now, and I feel people are doing the opposite. They're going from here, and as they go up, they're going more. Yeah. It's how to take that more, kind of start weeding out stuff. You start seeing different things, and then really, simplifying the process for your players and the team of how to go about their work, And anytime a guy is not doing good, when I was roving and you go from city to city and you fly in and they were not doing good, they would always go I just want to keep it simple. You know, I just want to go back to what I was doing last year. I just want to go back to what I was doing in college. And it's usually like their swing is not that far off from where they think it is. It's like probably that much, but in their mind it's that much. And the place that they're going to is a place of success. So, and they've lost that, right? They lost that confidence. Maybe they try to do too much. They try to do something they weren't capable of at the wrong time. Now your life's on the line. You got a chance to get released. All these thoughts and all these anxieties just start crushing you. So you want to go back to a place of success. So the best players sustain that success like longer than anybody else. Because everybody's been hot, right? Everybody was like, 7 for 10 at one point, or had a great 2-week stretch. Like, why can't you do that longer? What's the deal? These guys do. And it's not because his swing is better or because he's a nicer person. It's because he's able to deal with the up and downs.
That's 100% spot on. So that's what I tell these young guys, these pitchers on the mound. I played 10 years in the minor leagues, and like I had my own roller coasters. And I look back at the guys that did make it. I was like, they were just better than me in between the years. They can do they can sustain things like that you're talking about for longer periods of time. And that's really what And then when you talk about simplicity, that's why it's so important to keep a simple message sometimes instead of trying to convolute it. And then you get the analysis by paralysis and all that nonsense that goes on.
Yeah, there's a stat or a metric or mental. There's something for everybody. You know what I mean? To where where you can help this guy somewhere, but it's just not even if you're not going to overload a guy with video. You're not going to overload a guy with metrics. You're not going to overload a guy with mental skills. Like you have to keep combining it and then let him figure out what he needs and let him know that you're there for him. It's just like the player. If a player comes up to me and goes, man, I feel like I'm pulling off. I'm like, whatever you feel, you're right. Like, I'm not in the box with you. I can tell you what I see, but it may be the total opposite of what you're feeling. Like, you feel your hands are getting behind you and you're closing your off. You're right. Let's get to work on it. If you feel you're opening up your front side because you want to get beat in, you're right. Let's go practice it. I'm not going to – if I tell you something, then they're going to be like, no, that's not it anyway. All right, so what do you want to do? And then if they could do that at a younger age and be accountable for themselves, those guys develop faster. So the guys that I've seen that got to the big leagues early, it wasn't because their skill set was better. It's because is what we were just talking about, like being able to handle that earlier in their career than other guys who maybe get it later. It wasn't that they were so much better. It's just that they were able to stay on cruise control a lot of the time more than this as a player, especially in the hitting side.
It's the maturity, and that's why I think like a professional, like a big leaguer's son will have success because they've just been around it. They've had certain conversations.
They've been in the clubhouse.
Yeah, they just know that it's just, as much as it's genetics, I think it's more just the environment that you're in.
Yeah, and it's all you grow up seeing how guys act that they don't after a game like totally freak out. And like when I remember first starting playing, I'm like, you come from college where everything is just so this, and you go to Pro Bowl and you're like, okay, that guy's really good. He was 0-4. Why isn't he freaking out right now? Right. So you're constantly in search. For me, I'm always in search of that. One of our hitters, David Bodie, him or Jason Hayward are the first guys to the cage every day. And me and Bodie always talk like we should write a book called "Where Did It Go?" Like, where does your swing go? Like, it should not go anywhere. You've been working on it every day since you're like 10 years old. Like, where does it go? Why does the bat feel heavy today? Like, I don't get it. Like, why you know what I mean? So until we can answer those questions, I can't give you a bunch of stuff. Like, you got to tell me where it went and why does the bat feel heavy? That the same bat you used yesterday, the same exact bat. Yeah, so we joke about it. So if he starts off like he likes short pitch and flips and machine. So we start off and I'm just doing flips or whatever, and he rolls over a couple. He's like, where'd it go? Where is it?
We live in such a
player. Yeah, you can read the player every day early in the session. Like, and they do the same thing every day. Whatever their routine is, they mix up some things, but the guts and the nuts and bolts of what they're trying to accomplish are still there. And within, because high expectations, they shouldn't like pull off the ball and flips or whatever. They should hit their line drive, whatever they want to accomplish. And when that doesn't happen early, it's like you can read their body language. You start looking at the other coach and Termel sledging the other cage, and he's like, and you're like, he's about to lose it. He's about to lose it. Like,
It's crazy. I mean, we live in such a mechanics-driven world.
Yeah.
When in reality, it's mental. If I could go back and do it again, I would just spend so much more time becoming
Yeah.
trying to
That's what
become mentally stronger. Right?
Absolutely, 100%. And that's one of my disappointments with the whole amateur game too. At this young age, with some of these kids, they go to all the hitting guys and all the pitching guys, and they all work on these movements and patterns. And I'm like, that's great. And then, what's going to happen now when you're actually in the battlefield and none of it works? Now what?
Yeah, it's that dugout's, that's no joke, being in the dugout, when everything's on the line, and then, everything you worked on goes to, and then you got to figure out what to do, and we had a couple of our players talking to our minor league guys the other day, and Rizzo's the best. Like, he is, him and Adrian Beltre are one of the two top guys I've seen play with injuries, like unbelievable stuff. So, like, okay, you have a bad BP, you have a bad cage session. Now what is what he always says. Like, what are you gonna do? You guys still got to go out there and compete, because you owe it to your teammates and the pitcher on the mound to do your best. So what are you gonna do? He's like, feeling good is like overrated. Like, you can't feel good every day. Now 162 games, and he kind of says what Yelich says. He's like, there's about a 3-week period where you're like unconscious and you're the best player in the world, and then you're grinding for 2 months. Then it's like another two-week hot streak. I mean, it's hilarious how he puts it. And he's like, then he's exhausted. He's like, that's the grind of the season.
Right.
Right. So, and I always wondered why certain guys could play hurt or come back from injury sooner. Like, it's just their positive outlook. They keep telling themselves they're going to get better. They're going to get better. And then they just end up playing sooner and actually performing at a high caliber as well, being hurt. But again, like, we're talking about amateur guys, like, I used to early when I first started coaching, right? Because you're trying to show the players everything, right? So you're not over coaching them, but you're giving them everything you got. And then I would think, like, you want to know everything about your swing. And then what I started realizing is to start studying video, things that like are really difficult, almost impossible to fix, like, because the guy's been doing it for 20 years and 10,000 hours. By the time he figures it out, it's going to be 40 years old. He'll be out of the game. So it's 10,000 hours, right? So then I was like, this guy doesn't necessarily need to know from me everything about his swing. As long as he knows what he needs to do about his swing. And so I would go around and roll, and the best players know themselves, know what they can and can't hit, and then just battle with 2 strikes. And that's their plan. And that's like, not some recipe, but that's when I hear good players talk and you get them on the side. They're like, look, I can't hit. My swing doesn't play to this pitch, right? So I'm going to look here till 2 strikes. I'm going to hold my ground and then just battle with 2 strikes.
Well, now that you're mentioning that, and you're seeing all these guys at the big league level, Anthony. So those best hitters, those guys that you can, that aren't, year after year, the best hitters. What are their 2-strike approaches like? When you're watching, is there a distinct difference between their 2-strike approach and maybe say, the guy that's up and down, or the guy that's not, who's a below 230 hitter,
I think it depends on what you think is important. So you have certain guys where they don't like striking out. So they're going to, even if it's a big guy, they're going to choke up. They may minimize their move but have the same patterns, so not necessarily stride early, but try to get down a little bit earlier. The qualities that I see is from talking to them, they're not afraid to get beat. They're not afraid to get jammed. They're not afraid to go the other way. Some guys want to – they also talk about, like, the good player, the really good players, they talk about it as being a team at bat. Like, you could see, like, a guy like Riz or Chris Bryant, like, competing with 2 strikes and then kind of wearing out the pitcher. They go from, like, 1-2 to 3-2 and then 8-pitch at bat. And then first pitch to Javi's a homer. You know what I mean? Like, they just kind of grinded that guy down mentally, and then you kind of pay it forward to each other. But I think what's important to you or what the situation is, that's why I think, like, getting BP for a round is good, getting jammed, because it teaches you how to hit with 2 strikes when the game's on the line and you need just a ground ball to get that RBI. I just don't know, like, even when I was doing lessons, I would always do, like, situations. Because everybody wants to know the swing and mechanics of it. But you got to let it play in the situation, because you could just mess a guy up in flips. You could be like, and talk him into it, like, hey, runner on third, 2 outs, 2 strikes, and then flips, and the guy just swing and miss.
Right.
He feels it and flips, right? Especially on the amateur side. So I don't know if guys are doing situations and things like that anymore. Then you have other guys going, I don't change anything. And they just stay with their approach, oppo, gap, or whatever it is. And some guys just don't do anything. Because it's hard to grind with 2 strikes, man. But if you put the ball and play with 2 strikes, Major League average, I think, is $2.99.
Is that right?
If you put it in play.
Well, the one thing I think that's even more impactful is what you said, the pay it forward, or the guy that battles from an 0-2 count. Because I know as a pitcher, if I get you 0-2 and you just made me throw an extra 6-7 pitches, I'm not in a good space. I'm not feeling good about myself anymore. You know what I mean? And you're right, that mental wear down, and it's not necessarily that you won that battle in that moment. It's what it means going back around the lineup again. And I think people take that for granted. They don't understand how much impact that is when you really, you make it difficult on that pitcher to just go ahead and put you away, and you're trying to, like you said, you're up there, you're fighting for your life with 2 strikes, but you fouled just a couple off. And here's the other thing, and I'm thinking back to when I thought I was a good hitter in college. If I've battled a couple times with 2 strikes, I got to see you even better. I got to be a little more comfortable. And then now when I'm in that situation again, I'm not as concerned as I maybe was the first time around, So there's so much value in that, I think, when you go up there with that process.
Yeah, it's just kind of whatever. I always say your swing is rooted by what stat you like as an amateur. Like, first thing I do is ask a player that I just met, like, who their favorite player was. And then as soon as they say it, something in that player, a stance, the way they take, the way they practice swing, is in that player that they loved or grew up watching, because you're emulating people growing up, right? You're doing the whole Yankee versus Met lineup in your backyard or your alley, right? And you're competing against yourself. So I always ask them who their favorite player are, and there's some type of quality. And that'll just kind of tell you right away what their thinking is, or what they think is important stat-wise, or if they want to get hits or just hit homers. So,
and you can use it as a tool to relate to them, right? You can say, hey, when this guy did this. And
no doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt.
So Chris and I, we're together a lot because we're coaching together, and we marvel at Javi Baez. We consider him the most dynamic player to ever suit up. Give us a little insight on him.
I always say when I grow up, I want to be Javi.
Yeah. Good Lord, man. That guy's something else.
Okay, so say we talk about, like, the only thing I believe in as a coach that you're in control of is creating the environment to practice. So if you could create an environment where there's freedom and not be judged in the cages, so guys aren't looking over their shoulders, what coach is watching, do I need to rush? So you want to create the environment to practice where it's free and to not be judged. If you can do that, we're doing a good job. Now, to be able to take that freedom as a player into the batter's box and play with freedom and not be judged, wow, that's a whole nother level. And that's Javi. And Javi's always been able to do that since I met him 2000 when he was playing in Daytona in 2013. Like, you see all these things. And even Javi is a career 280 minor league hitter. He got hits. He had 320 in AAA. And you see all these things, and you're like, man, I don't know, man. It's a big swing a lot of the time. But then once you start peeling the layers and you realize what type of person this guy is, and adversity off the field he's had to deal with has made him the player and who he is today. Really leaves it all on the field. Doesn't live in the past. He doesn't live in the future.
He's very confident, doesn't he? He looks like he's very confident anyway. Yeah,
he's very confident. I mean, he'll just stand in the bullpen and in the cage, just throw a bullpen or something like that. And then he'll catch. He's like, I should have been a catcher. He'll hit left-handed, which is part of his which he did last year in the game. I think it was against the Reds. Popped one up. You guys check that out. I mean, he's the only he's not a switch hitter, but he's the only guy I know from the left and right side. It's very similar. All the switch hitters I work with, it's 2 different swings, right? Because it's 2 different thought processes, facing different pitches. His swings are almost exactly the same. But to see when I first met him to where he is today, it's like you get super emotional because of how much he's not necessarily matured, but just the things that he's gone through and his accomplishments, part of being in the World Series. But he is our kids love him. He is. I mean, our kids love our players. Are very lucky with all our players. But Javi's just totally in the moment. Whatever. It was like I saw him last year at Wrigley Field. We had a day game, and it's like 8 a.m. And I go out to the field. It's just, bright sun. So you sit in the dugout before the players start coming down for the cage. And he's out there filming a commercial. And I'm like, what the heck's he doing? So he doesn't get to, it's too early for him to come down to the cage at 8. He usually comes down a little bit later. And he's like, hey, I'm going to go to Starbucks. You guys need anything? So I'm like, nah, good, bro. Next thing you know, one of our coaches is like, look, Javi's on Facebook Live or Instagram Live in his full uniform in the Starbucks on a Saturday morning.
That's awesome.
That's Javi. We're in a day and age where players are afraid to go out in public. He's in there on a Saturday morning and he's like, well, I didn't want to take off my uniform, get dressed, and have to get dressed again. He's like, I just go out there, I take security, and the people loved it.
Yes.
And then he comes down like nothing happened with his Starbucks and starts getting ready to hit the cage. Like, dude, you were just in the street uniform.
That is great.
You
know what? And this is, I have a list here. I was going into coffee right now. I mean, you couldn't have set this up for me any better. Because I read that you really like coffee, so
I like coffee. Actually, the last week I've been straight tea, trying that out.
Oh yeah,
a little too much coffee in these times. But like, I demolish seltzer water. Like it's going like the bubbles. It's like I need the bubbles. I got the maker, and
oh yeah,
any flavor, any kind, or no flavor, just make it. The Soda Stream without the soda stuff.
Yeah,
the water. Yeah,
you just like the carbonation.
The carbonation, man. It's the bubbles.
Now, is that bad for you? Because that you created?
I don't think so.
The carbonation is fine, huh?
Yeah, it's water. It's just bubbles. It's carbonation.
I think I've seen that somewhere. I didn't know.
Yeah, man.
Wait, so where were you going with the coffee, though, Jim? What was that? Why was that?
No, I drink a lot of coffee. I haven't had any.
So we want to add some wrinkle to the podcast. Like we want to ask everybody what their favorite coffee is. If you have,
it's just straight black. Starbucks. I don't put anything in it.
Me too.
Whether
Starbucks, the place of choice.
Yeah, if I had to pick, I'd go Starbucks first.
Yeah,
and there's one right next to the stadium at home. So I live a couple blocks from the field when I have the apartment, and walk to Starbucks and then walk right into the stadium.
Yeah.
So
no, I'm the same. Black Starbucks. What about you, Brian?
Me, I like a little creamer in there. So
yeah.
The
black coffee, yourself, Brian.
Yeah,
it depends. If I'm
it's the wild pitch for today.
There it is.
No. I put on a few pounds during this quarantine, so I'm now getting it back on the healthy kick. So
when somebody gives me an order and it's more than one ingredient, I freak out, bro.
Oh,
see that much information? I'm like, bro, can you just take a cream? Like, just put a cream. It's the coffee you're paying for, not all the extra. I don't know. Okay, that's a whole nother episode, bro.
Rose easy. He's just milk and 2 sugar.
That's
so
it.
He's simple.
Yeah.
But all right, one more thing before we send you on your way. So we like to do call-up stories. Now you're like us. You didn't get called up to the big leagues as a player, but you did as a coach. How about your first time knowing, all right, I'm actually going to be in the big leagues. I'm going to be on that plane. I'm going to be in that dugout with all those fans. Tell us a little bit about the whole thing.
Well, I would say my first game, we got one hit. We almost got no hit by the Mariners opening day. So it's like the 4th inning. Prince dumped one in, I think the 6th inning over the shortstop after I think it was Felix walked a bunch of guys and we got a blue pip. It was like the 6th inning. All I kept thinking about is I'm gonna get fired. Like first game, like we won the game. We got one hit and won the game. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna have to address the media. We got one hit. And they're gonna be like, who are you? Nobody even said anything to me.
Right.
Like none of the players, nobody. And like I always say the best hit for a coach is the first hit as a hitting coach. That's it. You can get one hit a million times, but in reality, nobody really cares. Who the coach is, but you feel like everybody's gonna think it's your fault because your team didn't get a hit. Like that's ridiculous. So I would think too, like having early conversations my first year with Beltre, like I was really lucky to be around a guy like that. Like for 3 years, my first 3 years in the big leagues,
Yeah.
You know, he would always yell at me, and he'd be like, "Hitting coach, what's wrong with me?" And I'm like, "I don't know, Adrian. You got 3,000 hits. Why are you asking me? I got 0." And he's like, "You're right. Why am I asking you?" You know, that's in the middle of a game. You know, learned a lot from him, but being able to experience my first year with that, and you know, with winning and the guys that were part of that team, and it's, you know, because I was coordinating for 6 straight years, so you weren't really part of one team for a long time. Now you're going to a team that just won a division the year before in 2015 under Jeff Bannister, and now you're coming in. They're a team that's already won, and you haven't been part of a team in 6 years because you've been coordinating, trying to develop the culture and the organizations, and so it was kind of like comfortable, but you didn't want to get too comfortable too fast, you know, because Major League players are going to call you out right away if they sniff something. So, you know, like if they smell bull, they're going to call you out right away and in front of people. So you want to make sure that you got all your stuff together, so when that moment happens, when they do come for you for something, you're ready for them, because everybody comes for something at some point, you know, even as a coach to the player. If you're having a not so great day or something's bothering you, you got to be able to talk to some of the players, because you're with them, golly, man, like all the time, you know, more than anybody. So, yeah, that call up, you know, the first spring training was pretty good. But again, like, you know, you're trying to find your way to fit in as a coach, you know, as one of the leaders on the team, as a coach leader, with a guy who just won, team that's trying to win again, with a bunch of veteran guys. So you just kind of not necessarily laid back, you know, because you still have to say things. You just want to make sure that when you say things, there's some substance behind it, and it's where it's coming from, and it's real and authentic. I think Major League players could read through that, or even college players, or even high school players could read if their coach is authentic or not, where it's coming from, whether they've done their homework. So,
right.
Yeah, there's a you know, and then being last year with the Cubs, I felt like it was a brand new call up, you know, because it was the first job you ever went back to something familiar, because every job I got, from the Marlins to the Blue Jays to the Cubs to the Rangers, was always new, something new. Now I'm going back to a place where I was familiar. So, like, right, you open the door and you're like, let's go, let's roll. Like, you don't have to have all the relationships are done except for a couple of guys. And then, like, walking out to Wrigley Field, 40,000 people in the middle of the day, it's like no joke, man. It's not nowhere is even close to it. I don't think so. So you just kind of soak that in every day.
That's awesome, man.
It's like a brand, like playing at Wrigley, like during the day, even at night, man. It's like a call up every day.
Really?
I mean, yeah. It's just you know, and you as a hitting coach, you miss like the first 2 or 3 innings because you're at the game, you're in the dugout, but you're so exhausted from the whole practice day of the guys, like. They'll drive you crazy sometimes, or you drive them crazy. So you get in the dugout, you're looking, but you're not really looking. It's like when you miss signs,
Right.
like you're the coach doing, but you're nowhere near. You're like, hey, you missed the signs. You're looking right at me. I said, yeah, I'm looking right at you, but my brain was somewhere else. Like, that's how important the brain is. So, but just watching the guys run out there, and like the fans are just incredible there with the W flags, holding them up. It's just an honor.
Yeah, that's a place I definitely want to. I never been there. So the atmosphere is awesome, huh? That's great.
Yeah, I mean, even on the road, like the road, you know, when they sing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game," they root for the team. Like, I mean, everywhere I've been this year, my first year back to the Cub, the Cub fans drown out whatever team on the road.
Wow.
So it's just cool to be a part of with the fans and the organization, and you know, the history of it, and having guys like Billy Williams walk around, and
yeah.
And seeing guys like that, and having the old Cub guys come in, it's awesome, you know.
Well, listen, you've given us a lot of time, and we really appreciate it. I mean, this
good,
stuff
man. You guys are awesome.
Gold. This is great, and
yeah.
You're gonna have to tell David Ross he needs to come on. I played with him my first year.
Yeah,
really?
I'm surprised you finally got to that, Jim. I thought you were gonna let it go without mentioning it.
You know, the funny thing was him when they were calling him Grandpa. That's when I realized, wow, I'm old. Major leaguers are calling this guy Grandpa. You're younger than me.
He's good. He's gonna be good.
Yeah, I think he will be good. I know nothing about you know, the situation, but I was telling
Yeah,
some
he's
guys
good.
in my firehouse, they're like, "Oh, he can't. He's too close to the players." I go, "No, it's going to be fine."
Yeah. No, you learn that. I mean, whether it was my first year coaching, like rookie ball, you're still in spring training. Guys you played with are still in the organization, and like they actually want to work with you because they know you, and they know
Yeah.
you'll be honest with them. So I can remember like working with guys with like Jeremy Hermida or Matt training with the Marlins when they would come down and rehab in Jupiter, and they were like, "What do you got? What do you got?" And
Yeah.
I'm like, "You look fine. Like, don't lie to me. Like, you're gonna tell me the truth." So it's the same thing with David. Like he can, he did that as a player.
Yeah.
The backup catcher and the guy who's been that successful as the backup catcher is gonna tell you how he's feeling and what he thinks you need to do to win the game. So it'll be cool. It's gonna be good.
No, listen, if a guy's coming to you and they're coming right at you and they want your opinion, you know that you're doing your job and you get respect,
Yeah, because they're gonna go somewhere. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
players are gonna go somewhere, just like amateur kids do. They're gonna go from hitting coach to hitting coach to hitting coach
You ain't lying.
until they find out. So
Yeah.
the other thing I would say was just for parents, just take it easy. Like I've coached guys who said that the organization developed a guy like Kevin Pillar was $1,000 sign, Division II, senior sign. He's making $9 million in the big leagues. He's got like 8 years in. Like, you know what I mean? You're going to get seen. David Bodie on our team, Ryan Ruhr, first baseman for the Rangers, Division II in Ohio. You're just going to take a different journey, but everybody just needs to like chill out. If your kid loves it and he's good enough and he's around good people, he'll find his way. So
Yeah.
Great message.
There's too many guys in the big leagues I've been around that for all over the world that didn't go to showcase after showcase or drafted in the first round that are playing in the big leagues.
It's Louis Lopez said on the podcast, he said that he had like 360 like a couple of years in a row in AAA, and he's like, "Oh, I wish I had some of these analytics." I'm like, "You weren't going to hit any better." Like, what do you mean? Like, what are you going to do? Hit 520? No, it's just and what you look back, like, I was a good defender. If I played baseball 50 more games, I wasn't going to field any better. Right. So it's good to you got to be a kid. You got to be an athlete, play different sports.
Yeah.
And
play
be
different
hungry for the game.
Yeah, a lot of stuff.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's,
Yeah,
but really appreciate it. We're going to contact you this next winter. We want to get you down to New York Tech to talk to our guys.
Oh man, whenever. Like I'm right here, man. I'm right down the road.
No,
so.
yeah, we're gonna bother you. So
Yeah.
No, I'm there. Like I'm there whenever, man. Just you get together. I'll talk to the guys now over the thing if you want. If you guys want to hook that up, so
all right,
we can
awesome.
figure that out. If you want to do some Zoom stuff, we can do that.
All right, we'll do something next week then. That'd be awesome. You know why? Because you speak in the language that we speak to them, and it's good for us to get backed up. And then
the best part is when I do the Zoom with like colleges or high schools. I even did one with the team in Mexico. Some guys I coached with Toronto, and as soon as you start talking, like you'll ask a question, and then I'll give an answer, and then all the players like start like either trying to text each other or start laughing because of what they heard their coaches say.
Right. No, it's great, man.
Yeah, it's good. Appreciate it, guys.
Thank you, Anthony. We appreciate you, and we got to get you back on here again, so this way we could talk about 3 things. 1, Jimmy's relationship with David Ross. 2, that you pitched in the minor leagues. That you have some logged innings in the minor leagues, don't you?
I have the lowest ERA in Albuquerque Isotope history. Hitters park.
And the 3rd thing is, I got to tell you a story about the time I got into a brawl with Prince Fielder. So.
Oof.
But thanks again.
Dude, I'm on anytime. You let me know. I'll do it. You guys are awesome.
Excellent.
All right.
I'm in.
So all our listeners out there, please go to iTunes, Spotify, or Podbean to subscribe. We also can check out the episodes on YouTube. Hit the subscribe button there and leave a comment, tag a friend. And until next time, Wild Pitch Podcast.